Wonderful world of Disney. The owl that didn't give a hoot.
This is the story of an owl that didn't give a hoot. About being an owl, that is. In fact, she grew up doing her best to be a human being instead. It wasn't easy, but for a while, she almost made it. It all began early one spring on the western slope of the Rocky Mountains. Warmer days bring out all kinds of wildlife, and on this particular day, the wildlife brought out Johnny Fredericks and his dog Rags. Johnny was a nature photographer, or wanted to be one at any rate, but nature just wasn't being very cooperative. As often as not, Rags was more of a hindrance than a help, too. This was the day Rags sniffed out something that couldn't run away. It was a baby great horned owl. She seemed to be unhurt, which was something of a miracle. There was no sign of her parents, and not much left of the nest. She had to have a new home, and that was all the prompting Johnny needed.
Seems to be all right. I'm sure the zoo will be glad to take her off your hands.
The zoo?
Sure, it'd be the best thing for her.
That idea had never occurred to Johnny. Why couldn't he take care of her until she could take care of herself and return to the wild? Better than locking her up in a zoo. Well, since there wasn't really any answer to that, if you ignored a few practical details, Johnny's dad, rather reluctantly, agreed to let him try.
Don't say I didn't warn you.
Right away, the practical details became important. The little owl and Rags got acquainted. Johnny and his mother managed to get her fed and bedded down. Her future was still uncertain, but it was beginning to look a little brighter. Bright enough, at least, for the next question.
Say, what do you suppose we ought to call her?
Gee, I don't know. I haven't thought about that yet.
That's it. We'll call her Harriet.
Oh, no, you don't. You're not going to name that owl after my Aunt Harriet.
But, Dad, look at her.
Late that night, the Fredericks house had a visitor. Mandrake, a midnight prowler whose favorite pastime was dining out, uninvited. Mandrake had staked his claim to a future dinner. He'd remember this house, and he'd be back. A few days later, Johnny got his photos back from the drugstore. They weren't very good. His camera just couldn't bring those distant subjects up close. Then it dawned on him. Harriet would make an ideal subject for any budding photographer. Not just unusual and appealing, but conveniently close up, too. So that was how the album got started. And in the days that followed, it grew almost as fast as Harriet. Her down was soon replaced by feathers, and she began to look more and more like an owl. The trouble was, she didn't act like one. She dined on onions and radishes. She slept at night. She couldn't fly. and no one had heard her give even the quietest hoot. To Johnny, it was beginning to seem she didn't even know she was an owl. So far, she'd shown only one talent, for mischief, and it was inevitable that sooner or later she'd go just one step too far. At mischief-making, Harriet wasn't just inventive. She was inspired.
Hey, cut that out.
Every morning, Harriet's first trip into the kitchen started out with a one-sided staring match. She just couldn't win. That big, shiny bird never gave an inch. So Harriet would suddenly develop a deep interest in something else.
Oh, Harriet.
I'll pick up your groceries for the party tonight.
I'll get some breakfast in town.
That was just the beginning of what was to be Harriet's busiest day. No matter how hard Nora tried to get back to her household routine, she always seemed to run into old, helpful Harriet.
Harriet. Hello?
This is Carol.
Hello, Carol. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How's everything at your house?
Oh, everything's just fine over here.
I was just wondering if you were going to be able to make it to the meeting this morning.
Just a minute, Carol.
Surely there was somewhere in the house where you could put an owl and keep her out of mischief. Or was there?
Hello, Carol. Are you going to be home for a while? Okay, I'll be right over. Just give me a chance to get in the laundry. All right, bye.
Harriet's day had gone from bad to worse, but she was saving the worst for that evening.
Is everybody here?
Yes, teacher.
Susie Stable.
Here, teacher.
Birdie Birdbrain.
Here, teacher.
The Canary Sisters.
Vic, you're going to miss your own birthday dinner.
Now let me paint it up.
Be right there.
Today's lesson will be about something we really can't do without.
Money?
No, the subject. Ah, yes. The subject for today is melody.
Gosh, teacher, what is a melody?
Now, if you'll take a few notes, say 2 or 4, you can always add more. And pupils, what have you got?
Woofles, the greatest taste in pet food. Don't deprive the pet you love. Serve Woofles for happiness and health. Dogs bark for them, cats howl for them. So buy Woofles right now. Don't wait for the program to end. Rush right out. Buy Woofles. Available at general stores, supermarkets, feed and seed emporia, and all the better service stations. Get Woofles right now.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dadder. Happy birthday to you. Have many more.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, Vic.
Well, Harriet's career as a house pet had just come to a sticky ending. Early next morning, while Nora and Johnny set out for the lumber store to buy materials for a cage, Harriet stayed behind in disgrace. But at least she wasn't in solitary. She did have Rags for company. Right away, her curiosity was aroused by the way he got in and out of the house. Right now, Rags had one of his daily chores to attend to, helping the paper boy. So Harriet was able to follow her curiosity through to a startling discovery: the big new world of outdoors. Like any excited explorer, Harriet's immediate impulse was to forge ahead in search of further wonders. Now there was something just about her size. Wearing feathers, too. And eating something, which was encouraging. Might as well try some. See what she'd been missing. All right. She could tell when she wasn't wanted. But she was determined not to let one sour note spoil the whole day. And so it was that Harriet got too preoccupied to notice that this marvelous new world, so full of new sights and sounds and living things, lay along Mandrake's hunting route. now, Rags was beginning to feel like an overworked nursemaid. There just had to be an easier way.
Johnny, Harriet's gone. She's not in here. Are you sure? I've looked everywhere. Look inside again, Mom. I'll look out here. Harriet! Rat! Harriet! Rags, come on. Where's Harriet?
Good old Rags hadn't only found Harriet a safe place. He'd stayed around to make sure the chickens behaved.
Okay, you keep her there for a while.
But Johnny knew Rags wouldn't always be there at the critical moment. Harriet couldn't be kept inside anymore, and she'd be completely helpless outside if she weren't protected. She couldn't fly or hunt, and she'd still never hooted, not even once. Harriet didn't like the cage one bit, but she liked her first night out even less. Of course, nighttime was really Harriet's special province, but it was Mandrake's too, and he was determined to have that owl for supper, sooner or later, preferably sooner. Well, the incident made Johnny do some soul searching. He hadn't accomplished much as a foster parent. All he'd really done was turn Harriet into a pet, a dependent. All right, he'd teach her how to fly, and how to hunt, and anything else she needed, somehow. And so that night, Johnny Fredericks began making some long and careful plans. First thing in the morning, he began with step one, getting Harriet acquainted with the forest and the creatures that lived in it. Maybe something would trigger a spark of interest, the instinctive response of the hunter. Harriet was fascinated. Nothing escaped her glance, and Johnny began to notice signs of life he otherwise would have missed. But in the end, he was the only one who did any learning. Harriet stayed aloof and unruffled. She just looked, and that was all. Harriet had her full adult plumage by now, and her refusal to fly had Johnny on the edge of desperation. So with Hamburger as the reward, he began giving her flying lessons. Too far away, huh? Still not close enough? Well, Well, maybe it'd be easier if all she had to do was glide.
Johnny! Johnny, it's time to mow the lawn. Mom, I'm busy. You promised. Yeah, but this is important. I gotta get her to fly. The lawn's important, too. Now I'll give you just 5 more minutes.
So school was out, for the time being. But while Harriet was enjoying a free ride, Mandrake was lurking in the background, waiting his chance.
Stay there a minute. I'm gonna go get a drink. She flew! Harriet flew!
So the truth was out at last. Harriet had never flown before because she'd never had to. Now she knew she could. She hardly ever stopped. Of course, flying was one thing, but landing was another. Harriet had soon logged her full share of missed approaches and faulty touchdowns before she finally got the hang of things. Before long, she'd passed beyond the accident-prone stage, and from now on, the sky was the limit. Johnny even fitted her legs with leather jesses, so if he had to, he could keep her on a leash in the manner of a falconer. As her strength and confidence increased, Harriet ranged farther and farther from home. But trouble was in store just a couple of doors away, at Sam Miller's place. Miller's hobby was racing pigeons. Actually, it was less a hobby than a passion. And the sight of an owl flying over their loft in broad daylight filled him with panic. Owls were predators, killers.
Oh, hi, Mr. Miller. Come on in. It's Mr. Miller.
Is Vic here? I want to talk to him. I want to talk to both of you.
Yeah, he's here. What's the matter?
You are keeping an owl here, aren't you?
Yeah, but...
Sam, what's the trouble?
The trouble is, Vic, I've lost 2 of my best birds in the last 2 days, and you're keeping a pigeon killer here. That's the trouble.
You don't mean Harriet, do you?
I don't know about any Harriet. I'm talking about that owl.
Take it easy, Sam. Harriet's the name of the owl. But it's hardly a pigeon killer. She only learned to fly a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, she wouldn't hurt anything, Mr. Miller. Honest. She wouldn't know how.
Look, owls are owls, and they're born killers.
Oh, well, she was out flying for a while this afternoon. Yeah, but she...
Johnny, go out in the coop and get a chick, will you? Come on, Sam. I want to show you something.
don't mean a thing. She was brought up around chickens.
Oh, come on, Sam. Be reasonable.
Well, all right, Vic, but here's the point. I've lost 2 of my best birds already, and I don't want to lose any more. I'm going to keep my shotgun loaded and handy. Hey!
From that time on, Johnny had a lot on his mind. He knew Harriet was no pigeon killer, but he also knew a normal owl would have attacked that chick. And only a normal owl could survive on her own. If Harriet was ever going to take care of herself, Johnny had to teach her how to hunt, in spite of the danger that she might one day go after Miller's pigeons. The lesson began with Johnny spooking a chipmunk out of its burrow.
Now watch the other hole. Go get it. He's gonna come out of there.
Get him! Hurry, go get him!
Johnny decided to try another approach, one he'd learned from a book on falconry. A rabbit skin lure on a string, baited with one of his mother's homemade meatballs.
Like one? Come and get him.
According to the book, a bird will fly at a moving lure. But Harriet, it just put to sleep. Well, if she wouldn't go after an airborne lure, maybe this would be simpler. That was just the first of a long series of disappointments. By late morning, Johnny had just about decided that Harriet was hopeless.
Oh, no. If you want your lunch, you go get it.
Hey! Well, I guess you'll never learn.
After lunch, the warm sun made everyone drowsy. Knowing the rattlesnake was her mortal enemy was as natural to Harriet as having feathers. Apparently, Harriet had learned to fight the same way she'd learned to fly, and she was winning. It was quite a collection of pictures that Johnny picked up at the drugstore a few days later. Like any photographer, though, he knew he could do even better with better equipment. So, as usual, he stopped by Mr. Hornbeck's general store to see if that telephoto lens was still there. Harriet, too, found something fascinating in Mr. Hornbeck's stock.
May I help you?
Yes, how much is it? Oh, no!
Wait, Mr. Waterman, wait!
Finally, real trouble. A flock of crows, one of the owl's worst enemies. In flight, Harriet was vulnerable to a mass attack. But again, instinct saved her. Deep in the tangled branches, the crows had no room to maneuver. She was safe, but a prisoner. Now it was a waiting game. It was sundown when the crows finally gave up, and she was free to move on. But which way? She was thoroughly lost in a darkening forest.
Johnny, come and eat now.
Okay, just a minute.
You come home, Johnny.
Yeah.
Night had held few terrors for Harriet when she was safe in her cage. But here, the most familiar sounds seemed eerie, threatening, even the voices of her own kind. At last, the familiar shape of a house. Whose house didn't matter. It even had an open window. And food.
Who's there?
For Harriet, it was to be a long and hungry night. Dawn found Harriet still far from home, but her panic had subsided, and she was beginning to get her bearings at last. She was awfully hungry, though, and hunger triggered another breakthrough. She recognized the skunk as a potential breakfast. She'd yet to learn that this was the sort of breakfast that could fight back. Happily for Harriet, owls aren't bothered by the smell of a skunk. And she soon forgot everything else in the excitement of familiar landmarks. She was almost home. Her route took her in toward Sam Miller's, and he'd just lost another of his prize racers. To Sam, it was perfectly obvious who the culprit was.
She's back! Harriet's back!
You eat now, but I sure gotta clean you up. Hold still, will ya?
Well, I don't know. Your dad says it'll work.
Rub it down into her feathers, Johnny. It'll do the job. Matter of fact, it's the only skunk deodorant known to science. Tomato juice. Believe it or not.
Now look, Vic, I don't want to go back over this thing any more than you do. But I just lost the best darn bird I ever had. And it hasn't been 20 minutes since I saw that owl over my coop.
Sam, you're jumping to conclusions.
It was an argument that could have gone on till sundown. Harriet had been out all night, and maybe she'd learned how to hunt. But no one had actually seen her attack a pigeon, or anything else for that matter. So nothing was proved, and no one's mind got changed.
All right, Vic, but remember this. If that bird flies over my property again, she's going to get both barrels.
After that, Harriet was confined to quarters, in her cage or in the house. But she lost none of her talent for mischief. In fact, she really outdid herself on Thanksgiving, and for a while seemed perfectly happy with a way of life that was really more human than owl. But midwinter is the owl's mating season, and as winter deepened, she grew preoccupied and distant. Johnny worried about her even more. He was beginning to believe he'd failed. On Christmas Day, though, she seemed to be her old familiar self again.
Oh, Vic, it's beautiful. Thank you. Gee, thanks. I sure can use these. That's from us. We couldn't get you very much this year.
That's okay.
I don't mind. Wait a minute. We couldn't get you anything, but Harriet did. But it's from Harriet. Go on, open it.
Oh, wow. It's just the one I wanted.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Mom.
It's really from you to you. No, we showed your pictures to Mr. Mack at the Daily Sentinel. He gave us enough money to buy all of this.
Hey, look at that. She must have learned how to read. That one's hers.
Here, Harriet. I'll open it for you.
Boy, I gotta get a picture of this. Strut the mouse again, will you, Dad?
Harriet spent the rest of the day in her cage. Her holiday mood had disappeared, and she was once again withdrawn, almost a stranger.
Hello. Oh, hello, Sam. Yes, Sam. Yes. Good night.
Johnny!
Esther?
That was Sam Miller again. He wants you to make absolutely sure that Harriet's locked up tight. One of his birds is expected in from a race tonight.
Okay, Dad.
I gotta go out and feed her anyhow.
For once in her life, Harriet wasn't the least bit interested in dinner. She had a visitor, a male great horned owl. Here was a new chance for Harriet. Only Johnny could know how much he'd hate to lose her, but he had to do what was best for her. But what was it? Should he keep her in a cage, maybe forever? Or was that his decision to make? Meantime, Sam Miller watched impatiently for his bird to get home. While only a few steps away, another pair of eyes watched too. The wood rat had long ago learned that an easy meal could sometimes be picked up around the pigeon loft. For Johnny, the waiting ended abruptly with the arrival of Mandrake. The open cage was a trap, and Harriet was caught in it. Or was she? Instinctively, Harriet attacked with knotted fists to stun before the kill. Harriet had won the battle, but it had taken her straight to the one place she had to avoid, Sam Miller's house. Miller was sure he had a winner. All he had to do was clock her in.
Mr. Miller, no! Mr. Miller, look. It's a rat.
What happened?
Mr. Miller, what's the matter?
Oh, good Lord. My pigeon. I gotta clock in my pigeon.
And so, Johnny's faith in Harriet had been vindicated at last. But even that, important as it was, wasn't the big event of the day. The male, who had made himself scarce during all the excitement, was soon back. And it was time for Harriet's decision. it was Harriet's triumph, as well as Johnny's, but it was a time of sadness, too, because it meant that Harriet was leaving. The stubborn little bird that wouldn't fly and couldn't hoot had at last grown up to seek a future of her own among the distant hills.